It's me again! And we are now over here at the Les Davis Pier, also I think called Judge Jack Turner Park. Everything's getting new names. It's so exciting out here. And I wanted to pop in from this side of the bridge. We're again over in Tacoma doing some Blue Water Task Force. It's the second Tuesday of the month, so we're out collecting samples with other volunteers around the Sound. And what's kind of neat is to compare sites. So we were just doing a sample at Austin Estuary, and it is still a gray, soggy day over here in Tacoma. But we talked a little bit about how the water went up to the picnic table during those king tides. And I just wanted to pop in for a quick look here where we can see evidence of those really high tides based on these logs that are up on this riprap rock here. And just noticing, like, I'm guessing here in Tacoma that the high tide at least touched the grass, because looking at all of this junk that's washed up, as well as just the amount of plastic. So if you're still using a plastic straw out there, friends, switch to paper. Get your reusable. That is an easy peasy way to make a positive difference. Ditch the straw. As well as, whatever other junk we can see here. When the tide is high, all this floaty plastic gets pushed up along with it. And so here's, again, more evidence. Lots of styrofoam. I'm a little echoey because I'm in the dive steps here. Again, a reason why we test this site is because people go scuba diving, and we want to make sure that our friends aren't diving in poo. And so every month we look for Enterococcus, aka fecal coliform, in our waters, and you can kind of see the trends over time. This is one of the sites that's had pretty good water quality over at least the last couple of months that we've been doing this. The state goes back to sampling during the summertime, so we appreciate that work. But for some reason, they pause when it's wintertime. But that doesn't mean the fun pauses. People are still playing in these waters year-round. Rain, shine, cold, wet, whatever it may be. And yeah, so cool to see that at this site you can really tell the high tide line by these logs and all this washed up styrofoam junk. All that all that white stuff is floaty styrofoam that gets pushed up with the high tide. So it looks like we can team up with Surfrider and do a beach cleanup. I know that group does monthly beach cleanups, so if you do want to catch up with them, they'll be doing Puget Creek Park this month. Surfrider is a lovely partner with Harbor Wild Watch, and we like working with them. And this is one of those things that we do. And Jesse, thanks for the shout out. If you ever want to volunteer with us, let us know. And this beach is a little more exciting than Austin Estuary. There was some barnacles in the mud flat, but definitely a lot more barnacles here. Wherever there's structure, there is life. So looking at these rocks, you can see the barnacles, these nice big limpets, some of this tufty red algae here, this encrusting red algae, these tiny little snails. In my hand I have a thermometer, so you can see it's, it might be raining, but it's not particularly cold. Nice 50 degrees, and it's not windy, so that's a plus. So yeah, just kind of, it's not a particularly low tide, but the tide is going out since we've been out sampling some spots. And the tide for us at this site is sometimes all the way up to those steps. Again, with that king tide, you can see it's beyond the steps up to the grass, which is pretty impressive. That's a lot of water. I would be underwater if the tide was in. So other evidence we're seeing, you can kind of see this grass floating around. That's not lawn from up above. That indeed is a true plant that is found in the Puget Sound. So there's some really cool eelgrass beds, just, maybe a couple feet off these rocks. And yes, Howard, good question. What is the water temperature? For once, I have a feeling it's going to be colder than the air. So again, air temperature is in the 50s. And I'm going to switch hands so we can do a little test. And watch that temperature go down, down, down. So if you're scuba diving, it's chilly. Wait for that to kind of stop dropping. Hopefully it does. Okay, so 46.7. Sometimes it's actually colder on the surface, especially with all this rain. The fresh water can get colder than the salt water. And you can see, I'm going to do a quick little camera rinse. We're getting rained on. Sorry, it's getting foggy. But yeah, the fresh water is often colder than the salt water. And so as a diver, you'll feel this really, really cold face full of water as you first enter. And then it actually feels warmer as you descend. Sometimes it's still the opposite. I don't know. You never really know what to expect. But fresh water is cold. You get those thermoclines, changes in temperature in the water. And today, your surface temperature is in the 46.6 degree range. So colder than the air today. Last time we sampled, the water was warmer than the air. So I don't know what that tells you. I think it tells you that the Puget Sound is pretty moderate. It doesn't range that much, so it's either, we're in the winter time, so the lows are low, but the highs don't get much higher. So we range from about 45 degrees to 55 degrees, and that is the joy of the Puget Sound. It's this place usually doesn't freeze. For depth at this site, for Howard, it's as deep as my boots. Sorry, Howard, we're not going much deeper than that. But we'll go out a little further and see if the temperature changes as we get further out. But this site, it's easy to go to 80 feet, and then you can keep going beyond. I'm not sure what the max depth is in the beyond that. Typically, for scuba divers, we're stuck within our recreational limits of 130 feet. That's not something we do rockfish surveys here, so if I have any divers tuning in, this is one of our locations where we'll do year of young of year, I always flop that around, surveys, but there's this nice kind of rocky like this and concrete pile that's out beyond. I don't know if you can see, there's a little float there that leads you to a cool tire. And then just beyond that, there's an artificial reef that is home to all sorts of cool animals. We've seen giant Pacific octopus out here, wolf eels, so many rockfish, lots of cool creatures, including baby rockfish, which is something we're excited to see as we kind of help with a NOAA project that's looking at the recovery of rockfish species. Okay, and so to answer Howard's curiosity of, is the water colder a little further out? We're about as far as I want to go in my boots. And we'll take a look. You can see I put the thermometer in my pocket so it was warmer. And we're dropping down again. Still in that 46 degree range. Yep, not too much of a change. If I trusted that this thermometer, I think it is waterproof, but I don't know that salt water is very good for these things. I could plunge it deeper, which I'm not going to do, but we could see, what is the range of temperature in this place. And of course there's really cool, really expensive equipment that can do all sorts of water quality tests as well as temperature readings in like a column of water, so you drop it down and you could see how those parameters change. So yeah, we are, let's see, oh, we've got Jesse talking about a glacial lake. I know we were out on a boat yesterday, and we were about 160 feet off of the Point Defiance, which is just around the corner there. So with the shipping lane also, we know it's deep enough for that. So your glacial lake is our glacially carved Puget Sound. Good stuff. So again, just collecting another sample before we head to the lab. So I'm gonna go ahead, pop some sanitizer on my hands, collect a sample. Maybe we'll look at one more barnacle rock before we go, because we do like to do a beach walk when the tide is low enough. And the last couple times we've been sampling, everything's been pretty covered up. So again, this is our high intertidal friends. These are the animals that do the best out of the water the longest. Our barnacles, you can see, notice they're dead if they look like a volcano, and they're alive if that shell is all closed up. So nice to see lots of live barnacles on these rocks. I know at some other beaches we've seen areas where those rocks that were once covered in barnacles have lots of little baby barnacles, where the heat wave kind of took out our barnacle friends. So nice to see that there's, I don't know, it's a species that comes back pretty readily. So cheers to the barnacle, that hardy intertidal creature. They can live so high, even in the splash zone. So wherever you see barnacles, that's your clue that that's where the water can reach. Also these limpets, some pretty big ones down here. They're your cap-shelled creatures, and they have the world's strongest known substance, stronger than spider silk. The teeth they use to scrape algae off the rocks is some pretty tough stuff. So fun to see these little cap-shelled creatures. Nice little snails, which we can do a little comparison to these other snails, the swirly-topped checkered periwinkles. Here's another checkered periwinkle giving us the nice reason why it has its name, that kind of checkerboard pattern on that shell. I'm also noticing just a tiny hint of this green algae. During the winter, there's not enough light for this stuff to really flourish, but in the summertime, boy oh boy, you'll just walk out to the beach and see layers of green. So this is a 2-cell thick species, and they form these big leafy lettuce mats, hence their name sea lettuce, and we'll just cover areas on the beach. So nice to see little sprigs of that hanging out. Will grow big in the summertime. Also noticing mussels, these little black bivalves. They have 2 shells that close up. I like when they're little. You can see they're kind of fuzzy. Mussels have these things called byssal threads, which are the adaptation they have for sticking to the rocks. It's kind of like little spider silks. I don't know. I like to think of them kind of like Spider-Man, sticking around, and they can actually move, so they can latch those threads a little further away and then slowly do the mussel creep in a space. If you've ever eaten mussels and gotten a mouthful of something kind of tufty, that's not ideal. You want to clean your mussels better than that, but that would be a mouthful of those byssal threads. Hopefully you're just getting lovely garlicky butter with that treat if you're dining on these creatures. These ones, of course, are very tiny. Finger here today. And yeah, so again, the tide's not super low because that's happening at night during the full moon or new moon, but we have the less low of the low tides kind of in progress right now, letting us see a little glimpse at some of these creatures on the beach. So thanks for tuning in, for those of you who tuned into the Austin Estuary live as well as this Les Davis live. It's fun to do a little bit of a comparison at some of the sites that, again, we partner with the South Sound Surfrider crew to do some Blue Water Task Force water quality monitoring, because we know people like to play in these waters. whether you're beachcombing, kayaking, scuba diving, it's all good. So thank you all for tuning in. And as always, we hope that you learn and have fun. So catch the results on the website soon. So looking forward to getting to the lab, hanging out with Eamon and Mason as our students sample this water. So thanks again.